Reptile Rich, that tank's not big enough for 2 adult axolotls! Woo! What's up all you cool snakes and neonates, how's it going? I hope you're all keeping well. So you guys might remember we got our axolotls, we popped them in this little tank here. As you guys so keenly pointed out, Reptile Rich, that tank's not big enough for 2 adult axolotls! Woo! Yes, I know. You guys know me. I like to give my animals as big enclosures as possible and as naturalistic enclosures as possible. This was never going to be their permanent home, so we have actually went out and bought them an upgrade. Yes, we've bought them a new tank. They haven't been in this tank very long, but they were never going to be in this tank very long. They're already sort of getting a bit antsy in here when they're feeding. Even though I put 2 separate jars at 2 separate ends with the bloodworms, they still both end up at the same jar every time. And I don't know if they're fighting over the food or if one is touching the other as they're eating, and then they're all getting a scare and they just go absolutely crazy all over the place. So we managed to get them a huge enclosure. This is about 65 litres. We have actually managed to get them, I'm not sure the exact size, but I think it's between 180 and 200 litres. So it's more than double the size of this. So it's definitely going to be enough for them. So this is what we've picked up here. Now, as you can see, it's not great. So we filled it up, tested it, and lo and behold, it was leaking from this little pinprick here. Not great, guys, not fantastic start. So I drained it out, cut away all the old sealant around the leaky area, the whole side, cut it right down to the bottom. The guy had tried to seal this before, so I resealed it with HA6 aquarium sealer. It came with a big filter, so we've replaced all the filter sponges. It's got all brand new filter sponges in, just so there's no cross-contamination. The axolotls are getting this as fresh and as clean as possible with no waste from any other animals in there. So once we'd sealed it, filled it up again, we went to the beach. And when we were at the beach, we picked up a couple of beautiful, stunning bits of driftwood. So I cut the driftwood in half to fit into the aquarium. It's ideal because this half here has a hole inside of it, so it's actually going to double as a hide. Once I knew that there was going to be no more sealing, the aquarium was all perfectly sealed, everything was ready. Then we began fixing the outside of it, making it look a little bit more pretty. Masked off the glass, painted the outside of it, and got it looking a bit more nice for being in our living room. Alright, so we've filled the tank up for about the 3rd time now. The paint's on there, still quite wet, but it's like fast drying stuff. But you can see I've put the driftwood in there and it's started to float. That's because the driftwood has been out in the air for so long, all moisture in it has escaped, so all the little cells of wood are holding on to little pockets of oxygen, of air, and that's what makes that driftwood float. The only thing you guys can do in this sort of situation is just leave it. Let the water seep back into it and it'll slowly sink back to the bottom, and or I'm hoping it sinks back to the bottom, but that's what I've gathered you do. I did it years ago with my tropical fish as well. You just literally leave it in there. I've never actually used such a big piece as this, but yeah, so it's floating right now. It's going to take a couple of days to even a week to sink right back to the bottom again, which is okay because it's soaking, it's washing out. I've sprayed out all the holes and things like that with the hose to get them as clean as possible. As for risk of parasites and things like that, it's the same with the reptiles. People always say, oh, you've got to treat your wood, you've got to do this with your wood, you've got to do that with your wood because of bacteria. Bacteria is not the problem when you're dealing with wood that you have picked up out of the wild. The biggest problem is if that wood has been sprayed with insecticides or weed killers or anything like that. That's your biggest problem. Now this is driftwood fresh from the ocean. We were right far up the beach when we found this, away from any sort of paths. So this wood should be perfectly safe of that. as of pests and things like that in the wood. If there's any land-living pests, they'll drown and die off. If there's any water-going pests, one, it came from salt water, these are freshwater animals we're putting in here, so chances are the pests would be compatible. And for two, what would they do in the wild with any wood that floats to the bottom of the lakes where they live? Are they going to disinfect the wood where they are? No, they're not going to. The simple thing is, what happens, happens. But this wood has been sat out and it's been aired and all that for so long, of course you can see it's floating. So this wood is as safe as the wood you're going to get from your pet stores and things like that you just plonk straight in anyway. So yeah, this is a very long term process, letting the wood sink, doing 100,000 water changes just to get everything as clean as possible, and that's all we really can do here, guys, is just keep changing the water and keep it going. I've drilled a couple of holes in the wood to get it to sink. Now we've added the sand, and it's just a case of cycling the tank, changing out the water every time it's dirty. Right, so the temperatures are right now. I think that one's 16.3 and this one's like 16.6. They're close enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this water out of here. It's going to reduce the amount that they can jump up, because if the water's right up to here, they can jump straight out. So it's going to reduce the amount they can jump up, and it's also going to make them a bit easier to catch. So yeah, let's get emptying. So we've got the water out now. Now comes the fun part, catching them. I'm just going to get them in this jug, pop them up and over. We'll see how we get on. I don't have favourites, so it's just whoever goes in first goes first. Right, my boys, let's have a look. Come on then. Yay, there we go. So Newt is going to be the first one into the new enclosure. Right, Newt, here you go. He's like, what the? So much room for activities. You can see him down in the top. There you go.
Looking in the reflection.
Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lottle number 2 going in. This is Axton. Here you go, buddy. Woo. Straight down the back as well. The boys reunited. Let's try to burrow under the filter. Really, Axton? Like, I've literally just given you like this whole thing with massive natural height and you try to burrow under the filter. Well, look at his little face. So the tank is in, the axolotls are in there. This is the next day. Cannot be happier with the way that it's turned out. It looks fantastic, so much more natural. I'm glad that we've put the brown sand in there, along with the plants, the wood and the lava rock and stuff like that. This moss is going to grow and look wonderful. It's going to look so natural. As you can see, the boys had a bit of a walk around last night with all the footprints in the sand, so they've obviously given this place a good explore. They are nice and hidden away. I was very interested to see where they would choose as their hides. And they've got a little hide there, they've got a big hide in the middle. Right now, Axton is in the middle and Newt is over the other side. And they've also got hides up here. I don't know if they figured out there's a hollow log there. They've got loads of places to hide and separate from each other if they want to, which makes me very happy. I think they're going to be extremely happy in here, and we're definitely going to enjoy them. So we've turned what was a horrible aquarium. It was leaking, it was falling to bits, it was ugly. We've given it a fresh lick of paint. It is a little bit like Glasgow. It does look good from a distance. Don't get too close to it, but it is looking a lot better than it was before, guys. I'm so happy with it. Even when I kept tropical fish, I don't think I ever made a tank look this good. The only thing that would finish off would be a proper rock face background on it. I may look into that in the future, but as just now as it sits, it's looking fantastic. The water's nice and clear. It's got a little bit of a tannin tinge to it, which is exactly what I wanted. A lot more natural for them. Like I say, they live at the bottom of lakes where there's not much sunlight gets through. There is a light on this aquarium, but we won't be using it because they won't like it. Because of where they come from, where it's dark and dingy and all that kind of stuff. You guys heard me mention the tannins there. The tannins is that sort of brown-green hue that's seeping out of the wood there into the water, making the water that sort of browny green way. Tannins are actually relatively good for the axolotls, believe it or not. They're good at repelling certain diseases and parasites and things like that. The only downside to tannins is that it lowers the pH levels of the water. So we need to really keep an eye on the pH levels while the water is that sort of murky greeny colour, which is fine by me because it looks awesome. And where they come from in the wild, they would be living in tannins. They really would. It would be dark, murky. There'd be loads of driftwood down there, fallen trees and things like that, making it that sort of dark, sort of lake colour, you know, at the bottom. So this is about exactly what they would live in the wild. So guys, I hope you all enjoyed this. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, like, subscribe, comment, share the channel around. You guys know what you're doing, you awesome bunch. For me, the Lottles and the rest of the gang, take it easy. Peace.
I'm done. I'm done. I'm done.